And we are live. Hello, guys, and welcome to another broadcast from me, Troy Francis. Today, talking about the much discussed, but perhaps less frequently properly examined issue of bad boys plus good girls. Excuse me. A little bit of coronavirus kicking in there, obviously. I hope not. God. So listen, we all know the saying that nice guys finish last, okay? It's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason, because broadly speaking, it is a recognizable manifestation of human behavior, right? It is something that comes up a lot. We see this a lot in Hollywood movies. You will be familiar with the trope of the high school movie where you've got the guy who's the geek, who is the loser, the outsider, who has to watch while his favorite girl is unceremoniously snatched from before his very eyes by the bad boy alpha jock. Okay, I mean, this is not new. This is something that we all know about. It's something that we have experienced in our own lives, probably most of us, whether you're on one side or the other. You might be the natural, you might be the high T jock, the bad boy, you know, the bad influence that all those girls' mothers warned them about, who kept them locked up in case you came around and snatched them away. Oh, excuse me. I should be wearing a face mask for this, shouldn't I, really? Or maybe, I'm perhaps more likely, you know, you are the dude that was on the other side of this. You know, you didn't really understand how the dating marketplace actually works. You were brought up by those self-same Hollywood movies, which would always, remember at the end, those self-same movies would always teach us that you've just got to keep being the good guy. If you just persist with being the good guy, then in the end, you're going to win anyway, right? You know, so yes, the bad boy, you know, the maladjusted, dark, you know, narcissistic Machiavellian bad boy, he might make gains in the short term, sure, but he's not really going to get the girl, because in the end, the girl is going to see you, and she's going to see your fabulous niceness. She's going to get to understand, you know, like the real you underneath. And that's what she's going to fall in love with. And so all you have to do is keep playing that long game of being the nice guy, and you will win out in the end. That's what we're taught anyway, right? So a lot of people, a lot of guys, go along with that program. And on top of that, of course, it's actually the last sort of 30 years or so, there's also been this drive towards the idea that guys should be in touch with their feminine side, right? That guys should be, you know, gentle and open and vulnerable, and they should share, and they should, you know, be honest and and basically kind of like ultimately more female, really, in terms of the way that they come across. So a lot of us bought into that mode of thinking, and so what that means really is a suppression of our shadow side, if you like, if you want to get Jungian about it for a moment, a repression of the sort of darker and perhaps more antisocial impulses that exist within us, because we've been taught that to show those things is bad. We've been taught that if we display those more animalistic, more bestial, more arguably unpleasant, but certainly antisocial or potentially antisocial characteristics, then it's going to play very badly for us in the dating marketplace. And, you know, we tend to go along and we tend to do what we are told, or we tend to do what we think is going to work. So we think, because we've been sold the script, that God, sorry about this. Touch of the old virus coming on, I think. Yeah, we're told that you know, if we follow that script, that's what's ultimately gonna make us win. Unfortunately, it's all a load of nonsense. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that at all. And the reality of the situation, gentlemen, and I think we all know this, is that we live in a very animalistic world fundamentally. Now, of course, there is a veneer of sociableness on top of it. There is a sort of a veneer of polite society, if you like, that kind of holds everything together. And that's all very nice. But underneath that, if you think that our animal desires, our animal impulses have disappeared, have just gone away, then you are being very naive and you are sorely mistaken. In fact, we still pretty much run on the same software that we've run on for 200,000 years, which is, one of competition and one of ruthlessness and one of amorality, really. And this is the thing, right? People will often say, they'll talk about what's been called the red pill, which is really just the understanding of social dynamics. And people will say, it's amoral, right? And then other people will get funny about that, and because they'll sort of confuse amorality with immorality, and they will say, so you mean, you have to be immoral, you have to be genuinely, you have to be a bad guy in order to win out in this marketplace. And they'll say, well, that's terrible, because what about Western civilization? What about, the future of our society? What about the children? And all of that kind of stuff. And those people really are missing the point, because here's the thing: it doesn't really matter how you would like things to be. Nature doesn't give a damn that you would prefer it if everyone was just nice and polite to each other, and we were all friendly and we were all honourable and we all played by the rules like it was a cricket match, or if it was, it was boxing and it's the Queensberry rules. Of course, you might prefer that, and that actually might be a better way of running things. But the truth of the matter is that things don't actually run like that, okay? And particularly when we're talking about the field of dating and attraction and the manner in which human beings interrelate with one another, we are running on a very, very old script. And that's just the way it is. So you have a choice. You can either accept that and say, okay, right, I get it, I understand it. I accept this as being reality. So now I'm going to work on how I'm going to proceed, now that I have this knowledge, how I'm going to modify my behavior one way or the other in order to, in order to get what I would like to get out of this life. Because let's face it, we're all here, we're all individuals, we were all born, we're all going to be on this planet for a fairly short period of time, and then we're going to leave, and that's going to be it. So what would you rather have in that period of time? Would you rather that you have a good time and you get the things, broadly speaking, that you want, and you are successful in that manner? Or would you prefer to be somebody who is so concerned about what he thinks is doing the right thing that he would sacrifice the things that he could have got? He would sacrifice the experiences that he would have had in service to this notion of, doing what is right, which, let's face it, is a very subjective thing anyway, okay? So, you've got to think about, firstly, do you buy the idea that we are running on this sort of somewhat antiquated animalistic script? And if you do buy that, and you should, because that is the reality, what are you going to do about it? Are you just going to ignore it? Or are you going to explore and work out the techniques that you can get the best out of the situation possible? I'm in the camp of saying that you should do the latter, right? I think that, and this is why I love Robert Greene, the writer, because I think Robert Greene, when you see Robert Greene on video, he's a very mild-mannered chap. He's quite cerebral. He's sort of an academic, really. He probably spends most of his time in a leather-bound library reading history and making notes and writing and so on and so forth. He's certainly not down at the club with his Lambo parked outside, hitting on the ladies at the bar or anything like that. He's not that dude. But he is, or at least what his work expresses, is ruthlessly open-eyed about the true nature of humanity, of nature which is red in tooth and claw, to quote Darwin, okay? He is ruthlessly open to that, and that is what he expresses through his work. Okay, and I've seen recently some dudes pushing back against Robert Greene. You know, like for a long time, the 48 Laws of Power was regarded as being like a pretty seminal text, and certainly in this kind of space that we inhabit, because it teaches you all those naughty, nasty tricks that you need in order to sort of like get ahead, right, in the, you know, in work and in business and politics and all this kind of thing. Nowadays, I'm seeing dudes like slating it and saying, yes, but that's not how you live as a truly noble man who's going to help save Western civilization, and all of that stuff. And you know, unfortunately, that is a pile of crap. You know, you can think that if you want, you can believe that, but there are plenty of other people out there who are, you know, watching you with your high morals and ideals, and they are calculating ways in which to drive past you and leave you in the dirt, okay? Because that's just what human beings do, right? Fundamentally, we're self-interested. That's not to say there's no such thing as altruism. That's not to say that people can't be nice. It's not to say that, you know, you can't trust anybody ever or any of that stuff, because obviously that's hyperbole as well, right? But fundamentally, you know, human beings are individualistic and they look out for themselves. And so you have to make a decision. Are you going to try to go along with that, or are you going to resist it and attempt a more collectivist sort of approach to life, but risk then missing out on some of the greatest joys and beauty and experiences that you could have possessed otherwise, had you just been a little bit more self-serving, right? And this is, you know, coming towards sort of Randian objectivist position, really, if you like, of the, you know, the placing the individual above the collective. Anyway, listen, I'm going off on that tangent, but I hope you can get the idea of what I'm talking about. But what I really want to talk about today is bad boys and why bad boys are so popular with girls. So look, before we get into it, let me just read you a little abstract from a piece of research, a piece of scientific work that was done in 2013. Okay, and this is the abstract. It says, it has been suggested that the dark triad personality constellation, I'll explain these terms in a minute, by the way, so just bear with me, is an evolved facilitator of men's short-term mating strategies. So it's been suggested, okay? However, previous studies have relied on self-reported data to consider the sexual success of dark triad men. To explore the attractiveness of the dark triad personality to the other sex, 128 women rated creative male characters designed to capture high dark triad facets of personality, or a control personality. Physicality was held constant. Women rated the high dark triad character as significantly more attractive. Moreover, this greater attractiveness was not explained by correlated perceptions of the big five traits. We'll get into this in a bit. These findings within the paper are considered in the light of mating strategies, the evolutionary arms race, and individual differences. Okay, so basically what that's saying is that it's long been suggested that bad boys are more attractive, but a lot of that data is self-reported, because the way that they would find out is they'd ask a load of bad boys, are you getting a lot of action on the dating scene? And the bad boys would go, yeah, sure, bro. I'm getting loads of action. And, you know, and that was perceived as not being good enough. So what they did in this particular study is they actually took a group of women, 128 women. So it's not the biggest sample size in the world, but, you know, with all of this stuff, you have to think, well, does this intuitively ring true to me or not? The women, by the way, were aged 18 to 36, I think. So they were in that sort of still fairly young age group. And they presented them with a bunch of male made-up characters, some of whom had dark triad, that is bad boy characteristics, and others who didn't. And what it says is that the guys, or the characters who had the more dark triad personalities, were seen as significantly more attractive than the ones who didn't. So that is a powerful statement. Now, you can pick into it. You can say, well, it was a very small sample size, that, you know, let's look at the methodology, blah, 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 blah. What I would ask you, though, is, does it ring true to you on a gut level? And to me, it rings true, right? Because we see this stuff all the time. And listen, you know, I don't need to go into all of the examples of like, so dark triad characters in fiction and in drama that are incredibly attractive. But, you know, we've got 50 Shades of Grey. We've got the dude in Gossip Girl, Ed, who's played by Ed, whatever his name is. We have Cruel Intentions. Look at the Ryan Felipe character in Cruel Intentions. I mean, there are just so many examples of this. And as I was saying the other day as well, you know, if you watch any reality TV show, and I watch reality TV to sort of chill out and you know, let off steam after a hard day knocking out world-class red pill content like this. And it's kind of telling how many young women you will see on these programs. And they'll all say the same thing, right? You know, they'll say, well, what kind of guys do you like? If it's a dating show, they'll all say this. And the girl will always go, invariably, the girl will go, oh, you know, well, I always go for the bad boys. You know, I always like guys who just, they're not right for me, but I don't know why. You know, it's just like, I can't help myself, you know? They always say it. You know, it's not, and I said this in a previous stream, but, you know, this isn't the exception, right? This is the rule. You would be hard pressed, I think, to find, to meet a woman who said, oh, you know, I just always go for nice guys. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what it is. Like, my friends tell me these bad boys are really attractive, but I just can't help it. These nice guys, they're just so appealing, you know. It just doesn't, that way around just doesn't ring true, does it? I mean, if anybody's ever heard a woman say something like that, write it in the chat and we'll talk about it. But, you know, I certainly haven't. Now, the only caveat to that perhaps is that you might get a woman saying something like that if she is looking for a long-term provider figure, right? If she's looking for you know, a husband or somebody who to sort of like you know, to sort of like pick up the bill, if you want. And of course, you know, you get younger women in that camp for sure. But generally speaking, that's the preserve, you know, at a certain point in life. I think Rollo Tomassi calls it the epiphany phase. Women will start to think, well, hang on a minute, I need to, you know, time's running a little bit short here, so I need to find a guy who's going to be more of a supportive role in my life rather than a disruptor. And so, you know, I'm going to have to sort of compromise here and go for like a bit more of a nice guy, perhaps. A bit more of a responsible, nice guy, rather than this sort of exciting, this dangerous bad boy type thing. But you know, that comes about at a certain point. But generally speaking, the default for women, you know, anecdotally and through what we observe, and through I think what many of us have observed in our own lives, is that by instinct, women tend to be drawn towards this bad boy personality, and that's what that piece of research backs up as well. I mean, there are other pieces of research as well. You know, I'll do a maybe like a longer video surveying some of these things at some point, but in a sense, we don't have to, because I think we kind of all know. Really, I think we all kind of agree with it. So, what is it then about the bad boy that is so attractive, right? What is it? What is the fundamental of it? Okay, and also as well, perhaps even before that, what does it actually mean to be a bad guy? You know, a bad boy. What is the DNA of that? What is it? You know, what does it mean? Well, researchers have narrowed this down to this idea of what is called the dark triad characteristics. Okay. Oh, I tell you what, the corona, it comes and goes, doesn't it? You know, it's sort of like something comes on and then it kind of goes off a bit and then it comes back. Yeah, so there's this idea of the dark triad characteristics, and they are basically, there are three characteristics that are the very sexually aggressive and successful men, as well by the way as men who are very successful within business and politics and industry, will over-index for, and they are narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. And the theory is that if you register high with each of those facets of this dark triad, then you are going to be more attractive than if you don't, or if in fact you don't possess them. And actually, I think in another part of the abstract, it says that guys who scored higher on those indicators of dark triad nature, that is of narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy, those guys were more attractive than the guys who scored more modestly against those indicators, right? So those are the component parts of what it is to be a jerk. Those are the component parts of what it is to be a bad boy. So being a bad boy, it's not just about it's not just about the behaviors. It's not just about, oh, you used to mess around in class at school, or you used to write graffiti on the walls or deface library books or whatever, right? I mean, the behaviors are a manifestation of the characteristics, but what's important is the characteristics, okay? So let's go through them one by one. Cheers. Rob Banana says, I was once told by a girlfriend that women want a man to open the door for them, but cheekily slap their ass as they go in. I wouldn't like to confirm or deny that. That sounds terribly disrespectful. But yeah, I mean, there's a duality in terms of what's required, isn't there? Because on the surface, girls will say, well, I'm looking for a really nice guy. I want him to be caring. I want him to be this and that. But then when you look at the people that they often end up with, it's very different to that. And this obviously confuses a lot of guys, because they're like, well, damn, what have I done wrong? How does that compute? Okay. And that's because they don't understand this fundamental thing. Now, the reason that these dark triad traits are said to be attractive is because, broadly speaking, they indicate higher genetic value, right? So let's go through each of them first. So narcissism, what is narcissism? It is a high regard for oneself, okay? A classic example of a narcissist, and we can probably use him for all three, nevertheless, is Patrick Bateman in American Psycho. So if you've read the book or if you've seen the movie, and I do really like the movie, by the way, with Christian Bale, who's British, I always forget. I really like the movie American Psycho, even though it is somewhat different to the book. But I think they did a good job. If you remember in that, what are some of the standout characteristics of Patrick Bateman or Christian Bale in that film? Well, he is obsessed with his personal appearance, isn't he? So you've got that whole scene where he talks about his morning routine. So he'd probably fit in quite well on Twitter. He talks about his morning routine, and he does like moisturizer. He wears a face pack. He's got that blue ice pack thing that he wears on his eyes. I've actually got one of those in the fridge. I was going to wear it for the stream, but I thought I'd look like an idiot. He spends a lot of money on designer clothes. In the book, if I remember correctly, there are some very long descriptions of sort of designer clothing, going down to sort of like stitching and where the material's sourced and all this kind of thing. He's absolutely obsessed with his appearance. And so he is a classic narcissist. He is somebody who thinks enormously highly of himself. This is counterintuitively actually a very attractive trait. Now, again, we're told by society, normie society, that you shouldn't be narcissistic, particularly in Britain. You shouldn't be narcissistic. You shouldn't be egotistical. You should be self-effacing. You should be, you shouldn't blow your own trumpet, let's say. It's a very sort of like, it's also a very Protestant type ethic, right? Or a very sort of like traditionalist idea. Don't get above your station, work hard, don't be prideful, which of course is, one of the 7 deadly sins. And just be like, know your place, okay? The narcissist doesn't abide by any of that. The narcissist is like, well, sorry, my place is at the top, okay? And that manifests itself through particular attention to detail with appearance, amongst other things. You know, you don't have to be. You don't have to be. You know, there are some narcissists who look like a pile of crap. You know, they don't pay any attention to their grooming and the way they look because they think they're above it, right? They don't care about how they look because they think they're so great that it doesn't matter. So you do get that kind of narcissist as well. But a very typical tell of a narcissist is somebody who is very well groomed, who looks after themselves, who wears fancy clothes and all of this kind of thing, right? And Patrick Bateman obviously ticks highly on all of those pointers. Machiavellianism, right, is the second trait. Now, what is Machiavellianism? Well, I expect most people know about Niccolo Machiavelli, the 17th century author of The Prince. But if you don't, then Machiavelli was an Italian courtier of the prince at the time in Italy, and his role was to advise this young man on growing up on how to be an effective statesman, right? On how to, as he became the ruler of the country, how he should effectively run the country and deal with the different political factions that existed within it, some of whom were going to be for him and some of whom were going to be against him. Okay, so how do you manage these kind of different factions of noblemen and people of influence and get what you want and sort of keep the peace, but making sure that you come out with the outcome that you want and you're not swayed too heavily by someone else. So Machiavellianism, you really have to clarify what you mean by bad boy. Well, that's kind of what I'm doing now. I've said that bad boy is the combination, is basically the culmination of the dark triad characteristics. So narcissism, which we talked about, Machiavellianism, which we're talking about now, and then psychopathy. Those three things in concert is what I mean by a bad boy, and that's generally agreed to be the fundamental characteristics that make up a bad boy. Because you're right, you know, I think we need to drill down in it, because just to say bad boy is not enough, right? Which is why I'm going into this detail about the dark triad. He says here, by the way, I think the hottest girls only want the hottest guys, and persona doesn't really matter. I disagree with that, and I'm not just saying that because, you know, I want to, you know, I'm trying to be like, you know, dating coach extraordinaire or something. I entirely disagree with that, because for a number of reasons. Firstly, because I've seen in my own personal life many very attractive girls with subpar physical guys who are completely stuck on these guys because of their personalities, right? And I don't mean, I mean because of the way that they make these girls feel. Okay, it's the classic like pimp thing, isn't it? You know, the pimp doesn't need to be this amazing like Brad Pitt like character. He is somebody who has a mental hold on the girl, but having a mental hold is a consequence of these bad boy characteristics, right? It's a game of domination, right? And the guys who are dominant and narcissistic, who think they're great, who are a bit psychopathic, we'll get into that in a minute, are able to have this incredible, almost magical effect on women that really is totally divorced from looks. If you're a hot guy as well, great. You know, that's the full package. Then you're into Christian Grey territory, okay? So with Christian Grey, in 50 Shades of Grey, we have an example of a guy who is hot, who is good looking, and all the rest of it, but is also psychopathic, and that is catnip, okay? If he was, and that survey that I just read out, or that scientific abstract rather that I just read out, this kind of confirms what I'm saying. Imagine if Christian Grey looked exactly the same. I forget the actor who played him, but you know what I mean. Imagine that dude, he looks exactly the same, but he didn't have that dark triad side. He didn't have that, you know, psychopathic sort of tendency. He wasn't into the S&M stuff, right? Do you think Anastasia, the lead female character, would have been as attractive to him? If you do, then you're being naive, right? Because what really attracts her to him, yes, he's a billionaire. Okay, he's a billionaire, all right, that's it. No, I mean, yes, he's rich, yes, he's good looking and all of that. But the glue, the thing that really gets her obsessed, to quote Joe Lampton, in that film and in that book, is the mental connection, and the mental connection is forged on the fact that he is a psychopath. Okay, so this stuff is really important. Okay, and if you don't choose, you know, you don't believe it, you don't believe it. But I can tell you, if Christian Grey had been like a weak ass kind of, you know, boring schlub who was singing her Bruno Mars songs every night, that you know, she'd have kicked him to the can pretty quickly, or at least she wouldn't have had that same visceral attraction to him that we see in the film and the book. Anyway, listen, we were on to Machiavellianism. So right, so Machiavelli, this dude who tutored this prince in Italy. The book, The Prince, is really good. It's very short. It's fairly easy read. It's really, you know, management consultant type people read it. It kind of forms the basis really of 48 Laws of Power, or at least it's a real influence on 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Yeah, definitely worth a read. But Machiavellianism in the end is sort of associated colloquially with a kind of sneakiness, really, right? It sort of relates to or denotes someone who is prepared to kind of pull some sneaky moves in order to get what he wants in society. And in a corporate situation, right, Machiavellianism is really useful. This is why you hear people, you know, if you worked in corporate, you will know of people who, excuse me, you'll probably have seen people who weren't actually necessarily that great at the job, but they would rise up the ranks because they would, you know, kiss ass and, you know, say the right things and be in the right circles and et cetera, et cetera. So Machiavellianism is also part of this dark triad thing, because if you think about it, right, you've got the good guy. What would the good guy do? The good guy, the upstanding traditionalist, the tradcon, plays by the rules, right? You've got the Ned Flanders type guy who does everything right, plays by the rules, goes to church on Sunday, is a very good boy, and he tends to get passed over and shafted, right? The Machiavellian, on the other hand, will bend the rules or even sometimes break the rules in order to get what he wants. Now, that's not, you know, that might not fit in with your ethical code. You know, you might not approve of that, but is it effective? Yes. It's not without risk, but it can be very effective. Okay. So that's Machiavellianism. And then you've got psychopathy, which is the third of the three elements, right? Now, when we talk about psychopathy, people tend to think about, again, they'll think about Patrick Bateman, right? But they'll think about the serial killer, because this idea of psychopathy is always associated with Hannibal Lecter, with the guy who's, you know, the murderer, etc., etc. And of course, those people can be psychopaths, yes, or they probably are psychopaths. But psychopathy is not just related to that. You know, you can be a psychopath or indeed a sociopath, which is more or less synonymous, not quite the same, more or less synonymous. You can befit that. You can befit that characterization and not be somebody who kills anybody, right? What it kind of comes down to is, what is your degree of empathy, right? And psychopaths fundamentally tend to lack empathy, which is why they can be killers. Because if you don't have empathy, if you don't care what other people feel, if you're not really conscious of what other people feel, you don't care about what other people feel, then you can be very ruthless. And that can manifest itself in violent ways, sure, which is why, you know, murderers can be said to be psychopaths. But it can also manifest itself in other ways. And in the dating scene, somebody who lacks empathy is probably somebody who's interested in short-term flings, who doesn't mind that much about cutting somebody when they've had their fun and they want to move on, who probably has no compunction about sleeping with multiple girls at the same time, having affairs, all of these kinds of things, right? So, you know, this is nothing to do with being a murderer or being violent. That's the kind of the sense in which we mean psychopathy. It really comes down to, as I say, lack of empathy, I think, for want of a more handy description. Okay, let's see what people are saying. Yeah, lots of stuff from Luigi here. That's a cool shirt. Thank you, sir. Appreciated. Yeah, Luigi again. I mean, yeah, you're right. So it does matter, but I suppose looks are very important, and energy. I mean, yeah, they are. Look. I'm not sitting here saying looks are not important. Yes, of course, the better looking you are, the better. Energy as well. That's almost a separate thing as well. Yeah, looks matter, right? But what I am saying is that if you are a good-looking but very chody, nice guy, you're still not going to do as well as the bad boy alpha who's equally good looking. And again, that's what that survey, that scientific study says. Because remember, it said in that analysis, or the abstract rather, that they made the looks of each of the male characters that they presented to the women the same. And the guys with the dark triad personality were seen as significantly more attractive than the guys without, but looks were a constant. Okay, so this is putting looks out of the equation. And yes, listen, I mean, the better looking you can get, you are, or you can be, the better for sure. But there is a magical power in this dark triad thing, and and you obviously, when any type of self-improvement you're doing, you need to be working on kind of everything, really, right? You want to be working on the way that you look, on the way that you come across, on the way that you present, but you also want to be working on these mindset things as well. And as I've said, you see guys who are not that good looking, who are not that ripped, who are not these male model Chad type guys that we all imagine, who have incredibly beautiful women absolutely obsessed with them because of the fact that they have this characteristic. Now, we get into the realms of codependency here, really, and it's a pretty dark sort of route, really. I mean, codependency is a big problem for people on both sides of the equation, right? And it's almost like an addiction. You can go to addiction therapy groups for it, like you can for alcohol and drugs. But what happens is that you get, and this males can fall for this as well, by the way. But we're talking about men's attractiveness here to females. So you get women who actually have to go into therapy in order to get over guys because they become codependent on them, and that codependency is fueled often by the sort of the cruelty and by the dark triad nature of the guy that she's fallen in love with, right? Because all of us want what we can't quite get, okay? And if you are, and I've said this so many times, if you are just an open book and you are just easy to work out, and she knows that she's got you as soon as, from the first message that you guys send between each other, and you're like, hey baby, you're so amazing, I'll just do anything for you. And you finish your sentence on that like high note. She knows she's got you. There is no challenge anymore, right? That's not exciting for her. Now, you might be incredibly good looking, or you might be good looking. You might be rich. You might, you might have a lot of things going for you, but it's not very exciting, right? And so this is another component of it, okay? Women, and particularly younger women, okay, putting Corona to one side, but particularly younger women in this current societal situation that we have. It's been said before, nobody needs provisioning anymore. Women don't need provisioning. Women don't need the nice guy who is going to, you look quite good. Is that me? I don't know, thank you. I'm bearing up. I'm doing my best. What was I saying? Nobody needs provisioning anymore, right? These women don't, they're not looking for the guy the Ned Flanders character who's gonna the white picket fence and all that kind of stuff. Maybe they are when they get a little bit older, but when they are in that younger age bracket, they're not. And so what are they looking for? Well, they're looking for fun, and they're looking for excitement, and they're looking for sex appeal, okay? And, you always hear girls saying things like, all right, let me put it another way. They like drama, don't they? They like drama, they like excitement, they like things that make them feel viscerally, okay? And I think this is where men and women differ somewhat, right? Because I think most guys, to be honest, quite like a bit of an easy ride, if you'll forgive the double entendre, right? I think guys, if a guy meets a girl and she's attractive and they get on well and, you know, it's all going nicely, generally speaking, the average guy is going to be pretty happy with that, right? The average guy is just like, yeah, this is cool. I'm with Jane. Sorry, this got a bit laggy. I'm not sure what, my connection's a bit funny. Yeah, she's like, you know, the guy's like, yeah, man, I mean, you know, whatever. She's pretty cool. I'm with Jane. She's a nice girl. She's pretty. We have a good time together, whatever. You know, I'm happy for that to carry on. And guys will kind of get into a relationship and sort of coast. And they're like, yeah, this is cool. You know, whatever. It's good. I get my, you know, we have sex. We go to the movies. We go shopping together on a Saturday. It's fine. It's nice. Women are often not like that, okay? Because women like drama, right? They enjoy drama, they enjoy excitement, they enjoy extreme emotions in a way that I think guys sort of often don't, right? And so girls can become addicted to guys who are not predictable and who don't necessarily always treat them well. Okay, now that's a pretty dark sort of realization, and it's not, you know, this isn't a sort of a license to go out and, you know, treat people badly, but you've got to be aware of this, right? You've got to be aware of this dynamic. You will often have a situation where you speak to a girl and she will, you know, she'll talk about her ex-boyfriend. She'll say, yeah, he was an arsehole, he was out every night getting drunk, you know, sometimes he'd leave and he wouldn't come back for 3 days, he wouldn't answer his phone, I wouldn't know where he was, blah, 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 blah. And it's sort of like, well, how long were you in for? I said, 5 years, you know. You know, they just keep going back because they are addicted to the, you know, the sort of the chemical conflagration that occurs internally as a result of this dude, you know, just being unpredictable, being all over the place. You know, it's just more exciting for them, right? You know, if you think about a movie where, you know, why is it that movies are so compelling? Why is it that any drama is so compelling, any book? It's because of conflict, okay? Conflict is what draws us in as human beings. You know, imagine a movie where basically everyone just gets on really well for the entire movie. You know, it would be boring as hell. That thing would bomb, right? Nobody would want to go and see that. You know, it would get no word of mouth. It would be absolutely terrible. The reason that drama works, the reason that movies work is because of conflict, okay? And you know, unfortunately or fortunately, this is replicated at the level of the relationship. Because here's the thing, right? We're all kind of pampered these days, aren't we? Guys and girls. I suspect that many people see their relationship as a sort of extension of their entertainment. It's a bit like, well, I've got my Netflix package, I've got my MTV app on my phone, I've got my relationship, and they look to the relationship and they want entertainment from it. And this really annoys the traditionalists, because traditionalists want to think, well, no, it should be based on honor and courage and making each other a better person and all of this kind of stuff. And yeah, maybe it should be. But again, you've got to see the difference between should and is. And the truth of the matter is that, you know, I think a lot of the time people just regard their relationship as being like a form of entertainment. Okay. And if it gets boring, if the conflict is removed from it, like in a movie or a sitcom, or sorry, a rom-com or a drama, you start to think, well, this is a bit of a crap movie. Maybe I should go and see something else instead. Or maybe I should stop watching this Netflix series. I'm going to watch something else instead. So the guys that inject drama into their relationships are the guys who have girls who are actually obsessed with them. There's a difference between coziness in a relationship where the girl kind of likes you and it's all very nice and you cuddle and you go for walks in the park and, you know, you pet the dog together and all this kind of thing. And the one when she's on her knees crying, begging you not to go and ripping your shirt and stuff, you know, and there's that visceral sort of feeling occurs when there's drama, you know, unfortunately. That's just kind of the way it is, really. And the guys with these dark triad characteristics, they are masters of injecting drama because it just happens naturally, right? If you are somebody who is narcissistic, then you're probably not that concerned about, you're more concerned with yourself than you are with the feelings of other people around you. It's kind of how it is. And also, if you are somebody who is somewhat psychopathic, by definition, you lack empathy, and therefore, the people, you have little to no compunction about treating the people around you, in some senses, badly. And these are the dudes who, and that is what sparks obsession, right? It's not buying flowers, it's not snuggling, watching, MasterChef or anything like this. It is those somewhat more negative aspects. I'll just have a quick look at these comments here. Yeah, I don't know. Let me have a think about this one. If you have movie or TV shows to recommend showing seductive dark triad traits, it would be great. I mean, well, certainly American Psycho is a great film to watch. Gossip Girl is quite interesting. I mean, it's kind of a girls' series, but I've been watching it with my girl recently. She's a big fan. And if you look at the character, I forget the guy's name now, but there's a character in that who is, I would say, somewhat dark triad. He's a seducer, but he's very dark. He's very brooding. That's worth looking at. I'll try and remember his name. And the other thing is, if you see the film Cruel Intentions with Ryan Felipe and Sarah Michelle Gellar from the 90s, that is an update of Dangerous Liaisons, the French novel. And that is really, really good. It's a really, really good film. And you will see dark triad characteristics portrayed within the Ryan Felipe character, although they kind of wimp out at the end because it's a Hollywood movie. He kind of realizes his mistake, and then he becomes vulnerable and blah blah blah, and he kind of wimps out. But in the early parts of that film, you'll see the kind of thing that I'm talking about. Casablanca, Bogart is a nice guy in the start. She leaves him, he gets her back because he's a bad guy too. Shoot pistols and that. Yes, and then at the end, of course, you've got the famous scene at the end when he leaves her to the other guy, and we can only imagine how she feels after that. The guy who is prepared to leave like that has the ultimate power, and okay, she may go and form a life with the other dude, and perhaps they'll be happy in some ways, but is she going to have that same visceral feeling towards her husband that she had to Bogart, right? Christian Troy from Nip and Tuck is a great example of dark triad. I've not seen that, but that's a good tip. I'll have a look at that. Tony Montana in Scarface, yes, absolutely. I mean, look, we all like a bad guy, don't we? This is the thing, right? I mean, it shouldn't be a massive surprise to anybody, because it's not just women that like bad guys. It's like guys as well. We all like a villain. We all like, there's just something a bit more exciting, isn't there? There's just something a bit more kind of, just alluring about the bad guy. The other thing I'll say about Gossip Girl is, and again, I can't remember anyone's names in this, but you've also got, I need to find out their names. You've also got another dude in it who's since been in that new Netflix series called Her or something, where he's obsessed with this girl. Anyway, his character in Gossip Girl, he's like a writer, and he's kind of like a decent sort of upstanding kind of guy, a bit nerdy, and you can really see the disparity between those two characters. And even my girl will say she finds his character and the character of his dad, who's really a Noel Flanders type guy, really annoying, okay? Whereas the bad guy is presented as being really attractive and exciting and interesting in this. And this is, as I say, this is a show aimed at girls. So, we get a sense of what they like, of what makes them tick. And as I say, it should be no surprise to anybody that the villains are more popular. We all like a villain. It's just the way it is. It's just human nature. You know, we are drawn to people who are complex and who are, how can I put it? You know, who have that depth to them, who are unpredictable, right? We don't like people who are predictable. That's the other thing. You know, why is Trump so popular? Because he's not predictable, right? You don't know what he's going to say. Like, he could be at that press conference, like any old thing could happen. You know, you don't know what's going to happen. And that's kind of appealing, isn't it, right? So, you know, so girls have the same thing. So, Pablo Escobar, indeed. So what do we do about it, right? So what do you have to do if you are the Ned Flanders guy, if you're a nice guy and you're just sitting there going like, oh, but what do I do? You know, I don't have these dark triad personality traits. Can you acquire them? Is it even possible? Should you? Because, you know, if you have your moralistic sort of sense of how I should be like this, I should be a fine, upstanding patriarch, then should you even be going down this route? You know? So here's my view, right? So a lot of the time, the nice guy is not actually nice. A lot of the time, the nice guy is just doing what he thinks he's supposed to do in order to get the results that he wants, right? And it's not that he's actually nice. He's still as self-interested as the bad guy. It's just that he's going about it a different way. He's going about it in a way that is actually less effective. So that's one thing to bear in mind. You know, like, for all of your virtue signaling and for all of your sense of, well, I'm doing the right thing, are you? Or is it that you just think you're doing what's going to get you there in the end, even if a bit slower? And if it's that, then you might think, well, seeing as you're being self-interested anyway, maybe you should just what's the problem with being self-interested in a slightly more overt way? So that's one thing to consider. Can these traits be acquired? Yes, they can, to an extent, okay? You can certainly turn up the dial on each of the dark triad characteristics. So that is narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. You can certainly turn up the dial on them. Do you want to turn the dial too far? No, absolutely not. You know, this is not about becoming Patrick Bateman. This is not about becoming a criminal. This is not necessarily. This is not about, you know, taking it to a ridiculous, illegal degree. But if you start to institute little bits of these things into your regular character, then you'll be surprised at the results that you're going to see, both in your dating life, but also in your you know, your work life, your business life as well. I mean, as a disclosure about me, you know, I was always kind of the nice guy, I suppose. Well, not exactly, but, you know, kind of the nice guy and everything. And then I went through, as I've said before in these live streams, you know, when I was in my 20s, largely as a result of doing a lot of partying and alcohol and substances and things, I underwent this almost quite profound sort of personality change, really, where I started to just let out some of the more, you know, negative sort of sides of my personality, I suppose. And it was incredible, really, how that changed the game for me in terms of, you know, my dating life, as well as other aspects of my life as well. You know, it's kind of incredible how just not being that put upon nice guy for a change, or not pretending to be that put upon nice guy for a change, really shifted things for me. And this all kind of like, it segues into sort of like self-development stuff as well, assertiveness and things like that. You know, I've recently read a book called Radical Honesty, which I'll probably do a review of soon. Really, really fantastic book, which is just about like, this is what I want, this is what I need, take it or leave it. I read another book, which I think is called Not Nice, by a Dr. Aziz something, which I really enjoyed. I think he was a really nice, he's a really great writer, really personable sort of guy, kind of a self-help book. But again, he describes the journey from being the nice guy to being the more assertive guy, if you like. And really, on a very surface level, when you think about all of those dark triad characteristics, what they kind of really come down to is putting yourself first, okay? If you're narcissistic, if you think you're great, you're better than everyone else, you're putting yourself first. if you are prepared to go to any lengths, pretty much, in order to get what you want in work or in a relationship, whatever, you're putting yourself first. If you are psychopathic in the sense that you lack empathy for others, again, you're putting yourself first. So really what all of this comes down to is putting yourself first, making yourself, in the old rational male formulation, making yourself your own mental point of origin. That's kind of what it comes down to. You can definitely spice yourself up with these characteristics. It's not about going full on, it's not about going nuts and becoming, a crazy person. It's about sprinkling this stuff on the top in order to ensure that the way you're coming across is the most attractive that you really can. Good advice, Troy. Lots of nice guy traits, putting them on pedestals. Yeah, putting girls on pedestals. Yeah, absolutely. That is kind of a nice guy trait. But again, I mean, underlying it, are you actually being a nice guy? Or is it that you think if I put her on a pedestal, she's going to appreciate me for doing that, and then she's going to give me the favors that I'm looking for, right? So it is kind of being a nice guy, but it's also you're doing it with self-interest in mind. And so therefore, why not just be self-interested, right? If you're going to be self-interested anyway, why hide behind the curtain? Why not just come out and go, yeah, I'm self-interested. What are you going to do about it? I'm an arsehole, So yeah, something to think about there. So in my course, which is called Charisma and Dating Academy, which is, as I've been saying this week, it opens for enrollment on the 30th of April. And the enrollment period is really short. It's only open for 5 days for you to enroll, to buy the course, to get involved. 30th of April to May the 4th, there is a whole section about the bad boy archetype. There's a whole section about dark triad characteristics and how you can start to acquire them and how you can use them in terms of improving your dating success within the current sexual marketplace. Because the thing is, guys, right, at the moment, the dating marketplace is problematic. It's challenging, right? We've had bigger challenges, and I'm not just talking about lockdown. There are huge challenges as a result of things like Instagram and Tinder and the way that dating is now globalized, right? Competition is now global. So you have to stand out. And the way that you stand out, increasingly, because of the way the market is, you have to be demonstrating some of this dark triad stuff. You have to be coming across as a bit narcissistic. You have to be coming across as a little bit Machiavellian, a little bit psychopathic, right? You don't want to come across as the guy who's easily bossed around, who's a walkover, who she can work out when she, the first read of the profile, she can work you out. You're an open book. It's boring. She's going to move on, or she's not even going to reply to your messages, right? So you need to be showing some of these characteristics. And what I do in that course, which is coming out on the 30th of April, is to do a really deep dive into how exactly you can utilize these characteristics in order to come across as a sexy, dangerous kind of bad boy, which ultimately is, like it or not, that is what has currency in this market. So you either sort of ignore that and say, well, I'm just going to ignore that and I'm going to pretend it's not like that, or you're going to accept it. You're going to get the tools that you need in order to thrive. And what I said in my book, How to Be an Arsehole, which covers these topics as well, by the way, is that dark triad characteristics plus radical differentiation, which we'll be talking about tomorrow, is the silver bullet you need. So if you wanted a silver bullet in dating, and full disclosure, there's no real silver bullet. You're still going to get rejections. You still got to do the work. You still got to work on yourself, etc., etc. But if there is something that can be described as a silver bullet or akin to a silver bullet, it is really that. It is dark triad personality plus radical differentiation. That is to say, the courage to stand out from the crowd, the courage to be different from other people, the courage to be authentic, but not authentic in a wishy-washy kind of way. I mean, like authentic in the sense of, I've got something going on for me, and sod the rest of you. I'm doing my thing, and if you don't like it, you can get to F, because you know, that's how it is. And that's the kind of thing that you need to be cultivating, right? In this market, with the way that dating is now, this is so important, right? Because you are in competition with dudes all over the planet. And let me tell you this, right? The top 10% guys, you know, the guys who've really genuinely got this stuff on lock, they ooze these characteristics, okay? So if you can display them, even in a lesser way, then that puts you into that category, and that's powerful. It's powerful stuff. So that's why in Charisma and Dating Academy, what I do is the first few sections of the course, it's really all about the internal stuff. It's about the mindset stuff. It's about charisma, but also this bad boy stuff, because you don't just want to be charismatic but wet. You want to be charismatic with an edge. So we give you the bad boy stuff. Then we give you the radical differentiation stuff. And then we go into the game stuff, which is the actual techniques that you need to use. But without the mindset stuff, without the bad boy side, without the, without the sort of radical differentiation, you're still not winning, because you're just going to be an also-ran. You know, you need this package. You need to be fascinating, okay? You know, you want her to be obsessed. You need to be fascinating. You need to be different. You want to be one of those guys. She's like, oh my God, he was just so different. You know, and you do that largely through the mental connection you create with her. Powerful stuff, guys. It really, really is. When I discovered this stuff, it completely changed everything for me. And my life was never the same again since. So, you know, I've just packaged it all up in this course. So, you know, I'm really excited about it. It's going to be awesome. Where do you meet women during Corona? Well, I'm not sure that you do, really. I mean, online is obviously the place. There's a lot of activity on the dating apps. We know that activity on the dating apps has gone through the roof. Instagram, things like that. That's where you want to be. But listen, I mean, look, I think to some extent we have to accept most of the world's on lockdown. This is not a normal situation, but it's not going to last forever, okay? We're already seeing some easing of restrictions in some countries. There is huge pressure on governments to start to ease up this situation. It will happen. We are going to pull out of this, probably sooner in some places than maybe we think. And the dating scene is going to go through the roof. You know, I mean, on John MLD's show yesterday, and we were talking about this. I mean, like, you know, it's going to go nuts because everyone's been locked up and suppressed for a long period of time. You know, when the shackles are off, it's going to go crazy. But you need to have the chops. You need to have the characteristics down. You need to have the know-how down in order to take advantage. Once the dating scene reignites itself, okay? Otherwise, you're just going to be left on the sidelines, and you know you don't want that. So really, now is a perfect time to be studying this stuff and to be thinking about this stuff, because we've got a little bit of respite for self-improvement before the calm before the storm, if you like. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Cool. Okay. Well, listen. More information on Charisma and Dating Academy, which is out 30th of April to the 4th of May. There's a link below, which has got, click through the link, get on the email list. I'm sending out more info this week. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And do subscribe to this channel as well while you're here, because I'm putting out loads of content here at the moment, and it just really helps me to, like, obviously grow the subscribers, get more people viewing, and spread the word, etc., so I can keep doing the content. But I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found it useful, food for thought, etc. I will leave it there for now, but we will speak again very soon. Bye-bye.